So, well, like I said before, uh, in this process, what on this restart again, which we're going to do right now, I'm going to focus not on this frontal area like I did in the beginning, and I have to say that was a really big waste of time because what my thinking was, if I were to work on this area in the front, the hairs on the top area on the top section would grow good enough that it would hide this baldness right here enough that if I worked on this frontal area, would make it look a little bit more natural. But what ended up happening in the end was just you could actually see that it was thinning, that it was pretty thin right here. So, and then the frontal hairs would just fall off after a few days. But what I've noticed in those coming in those years that I've done the process was that uh, the it's much more beneficial, much more of a efficiency of time if we were to focus on this area from here until this area. The hairs keep on the scalp much more longer than if you were to start on this frontal area. So in this restart again, we're gonna focus, and we're just basically I'm just gonna forget about this frontal area and just focus on covering up these spots with the transplant hairs. So let's get to it. And uh, if I remember correctly, the when you start this process, when you start this process, it's gonna hurt. And I did a few test transplants a week ago, and I have to say, yeah, it did hurt because it's been 3 years since uh, I started. Since the last time I kind of restarted on this. So if if probably I would say in the beginning I would say maybe just do 2 or 3 the first time you ever do this, and if it's too painful, just don't even maybe try a second day. And if you see that it's too painful for you, you think it's not going to, it's not going to be worthwhile for you in terms of withstanding the pain, then yeah, I would say just stop because it is kind of painful in the beginning. So yeah, so let's get to it, and I'll be back with you in a second. So as you see now, I have the needle in the scalp. Right now I'm trying to find the donor hair from the pubic area as we previously discussed before. What I try and do and space it out instead of taking them out in the pubic hairs I mean. So I'm there inserting the hair. As one thing I noticed is uh, I do remember that it had more. Well, it could be the light, the intense light, but I do remember that it had uh, head, uh, more hair on the top area of my scalp as compared to when I first started this process back in 2010. So I'm not. That's one thing that concerns me for this time around. If because it seems that I have less hair on the top area of my scalp, will I be able to cover properly the the area that make it convincing, make it look convincing that that the make it convincing for the effect of having a full head of hair. We're gonna see how that plays out, but I do remember, yeah, I did have more hair on the scalp than as it looks now, and that's another thing that I wanted to discuss. That when I was looking at my scalp in the mirror, the area that I'm able to look at clearly, uh, facing the mirror in the front, is about that same range where that's as far in of the scalp that I can see properly when I'm looking at my scalp in the mirror. So what I was thinking of doing is perhaps not. Well, I think what I was thinking of doing was looking at another way where I could make a contraption or some sort of apparatus actually where I wouldn't have to kneel have be in that certain position of looking downwards, or I can just look forward, and I can by the help of mirrors look at the other areas of my scalp, preferably that top area that you see, the topmost area, which if you look in the mirror yourself, it might be hard for yourself to actually go higher than myself in that as you can see now where that needle is, that's as high on the scalp that I can visibly see well to make the puncture hole and put the hair in that puncture hole. Anything a little bit further back is a little bit much harder. Well, it is harder unless my hair is a little bit more shorter, I guess you can say. If you sometimes when you do that puncture, you might feel a little tender area on the scalp. If you see me waving a no signal, kind of a waving my fingers around after making, almost trying to make a puncture, I'm kind of telling myself, no, that area is not it's too painful to make that puncture. So what I try and do is find an area that's a little bit closer to there and make the puncture there, instead of having it be exactly where I put the needle at in the beginning. Right now I'm testing to see if that, yeah, I'd have like a bit of it looks like a blood stain on my scalp, but that's just from all the previous punctures that over the years that I've done. So in certain lights, it looks like some sort of bleeding or scrape on that area of my scalp. So yeah, like I said before, like I stated before, one of the things I'm looking at right now is trying to see if there's some sort of apparatus, maybe probably by welding. You can weld 2 or 3 mirrors on some sort of metal pipes, and those metal pipes would help give you a better angle of the top area of the scalp, because preferably I would think it would be much more convincing if that top area of the scalp, once those hairs grow longer, that's going to help with the issue of making it look fuller than, say, I were to just stop where in that middle area of the scalp where, like I said, I'm able to visibly see where I can make the puncture wound and insert the hair in. One thing I've noticed also in this way that I do this method is, because I'm having to lean forward, I'm getting a lot of forehead wrinkles. Those forehead wrinkles are very pronounced. So that's also another reason, perhaps, if you're using a mirror, if you can, preferably be as upright as possible, I would say, to not have those. Perhaps I think that could be an issue, where if you're having to do this for several months, forehead wrinkles may become more pronounced, as you can see in my situation. And like I said before, and I'm going to keep continuing, I don't plan to do this as long as I used to when I was thinking that the results would be more long lasting, or long lasting in the sense that I wouldn't have to be doing maintenance work throughout the year. I thought this be a few months of a year thing, where I could be able to let it go for a year or two without having to do maintenance work, but that's not the case. So what I'm trying to do is just probably do this method for 10 to 15 minutes a night, and just go little by little. I want to see how it turns out. that way instead of doing it for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, possibly 2 hours if I had that time on hand, which I used to do. As you can see on the as you see in the results, it did, the results were visible, but I don't know if anybody, I don't think I want to do 2 hours, 45 minutes or 30 minutes doing this process. It is kind of it does kind of wear on you after a while. So today is August 19th, 2018, and on this restart, I don't think I want to be doing this for 30 minutes a day or an hour. That's what I was doing in the first years when I thought that the process was more long lasting. But in this instance, I think I'm just gonna go 10 to 15 minutes a day, and I think you should too. Of course, like I said before, in the first days, the pain from the punctures of the scalp are going to be pretty, not pretty intense, but they're going to be noticeable maybe when you go to sleep. So I would probably recommend maybe two, three, or four hairs, like I said before in the video. So yeah, in the first days, maybe three or four hairs. But what I'm thinking of doing is in this restart, just going 10 to 15 minutes a day, doing this process, and probably we should be done. I should be done by early December, hopefully. Uh, and like I said before, I'm not going to focus on this frontal area. I'm just going to try and uh, transplant in this section right here, from here to this area right here, and just try and go for a comb down look. I think that's the best option, not just for me, but for everybody. Um, I'll show you once the results start to show more clearly. But I was able to get this hair, comb it down up to this length, and then probably flip it a little bit this way, and it looked pretty good. Like it basically looked like I had a real thick head of hair. And but I think in the beginning, I don't think I'm gonna. Well, actually, in the end, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna try and stick for permanently, just for a comb down look. Um, as you probably saw in the results photo, something like in that terms of in that terms of results. So I think maybe, yeah, I'll put up a picture of what one of it wasn't the final results, but the results of after a few months of it being noticeable. The type of hairstyle that we're gonna try and finish with. So I hope to catch you guys in the next videos, and it shouldn't be too long. It won't be too long. The big issue with the video output was a microphone issue. It was kind of I was hooking up to the camera jack, and it was buzzing for some reason. It's driving me a little bit not crazy, but it's just a little bit annoying that every camera I was using was buzzing. I thought it was maybe the area here, but I think we figured out that problem, and so the video shouldn't take as long as they have been taking. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.